There's a wonderful story told in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 19. It's the story of where Jesus meets a tax collector. And it's interesting, we're doing this little video here behind a building where taxes were collected in the past. The tax collector to whom Jesus met was a man who was despised. There were people who collected taxes for the Roman government, therefore they were despised by their own people. But they also suffered from a reputation of dishonesty and greed. Zacchaeus is the man we have in mind here. We read about him in the Gospel of Luke, and he hears that Jesus is coming by where he is. Large crowds have gathered. But because he's a man who is small in stature, he doesn't have the opportunity to see Jesus. But he has initiative. So what he does is that he makes his way to a sycamore tree, climbs up on the sycamore tree to get a good view of Jesus. And as Jesus is passing by, he sees Zacchaeus in the tree, and he calls him down and says, "Come, I'm going to have a meal in your home today." Now the people who saw this were absolutely amazed that Jesus would take time to dine with a notorious greedy tax collector. If they are shocked at that, they are in for further shocks, because once Jesus engages in conversation with the man, Zacchaeus makes an extraordinary response. This is what happens after Jesus has been with him for a while. He says here, "And Zacchaeus said, from now on, I will give half my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay him back 4 times the amount." Two extraordinary things. Number one, I will give half my assets to the poor. This is coming from a greedy, selfish, evil man. And the second thing I'll do, if I've defrauded anybody, I will pay them back 4 times the amount I defrauded of them. So Zacchaeus is showing all the signs of truly a converted man. The poor will be cared for, restitution will be made to those who have been defrauded. And so coming to believe in Jesus has really changed his life. Now, there's no point in us today reading that story and leaving it parked safely in the first century. We need to make an application. What does it have to say to us here in the 21st century in Dublin, Ireland? Look around at our country at the moment. We're in a state of financial crisis since that crash came in 2008. And there's so much hardship has been called upon people, much of which could have been avoided if people were honest and truthful in all their financial dealings. We have seen corruption taking place on a frightening level, and as a result, many people have been hurt. The people who need the help most are suffering because of the dishonesty, the lack of truth, the lack of integrity, and the greed of so many others. Now, is there a solution to this whole dilemma? Let me tell you, first of all, I'm not a politician. I'm not an economist. I'm a preacher of the gospel. And yes, there is a solution to all of this. The solution that changed Zacchaeus from being a despised, money-grabbing thief, the same solution can change people today. They can turn people into honest, upright, godly, caring people. And what Jesus did in the heart of Zacchaeus, God can do today in the hearts of those who will seek him. You see, introducing legislation, more legislation, is not going to address the problem. All that will succeed in doing is making it a little more difficult for people to be dishonest. But what Jesus did with Zacchaeus was he changed them from the inside out. And if people today will encounter the living Christ, their lives would likewise be changed.